So that's the sideshow with Alan Dershowitz. But today we come to you with a little story to kind of connect the dots. And it kind of got me thinking. I got sent this archive the other day on Les Wexner's old ties to the Mafia. In particular, the whacking or the killing of this one particular lawyer in the late 1980s. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because Les Wexner, as we know, is the one who gifted Epstein the mansion in New York. And let me say this simply, okay? The employee doesn't give the boss the house. The boss gives the employee the house. And it's very important to remember this because right now, Les Wexner is sitting free in Ohio. Nobody's questioned him. And I've said this before. This is an organization. This is a network right here. Epstein didn't act alone. There were ties to military personnel as far as their helicopters and the jets they use. There was bankers involved. There was all these people, all these tight connections. And a lot of them haven't been arrested. Ghislaine Maxwell, Les Wexner, they haven't had to speak for it. But it's kind of crazy because in the 80s and the 90s, the elites used the Mafia more. You know what I'm saying? If you ever watched JFK, the Mafia was involved. Now the Italian Mafia is a little bit kind of disbanded, whatnot. But when you look at this, we're going to take a little deep dive into Les Wexner's old school Mafia ties, and it's really, really important. So let's bring up the report right here. We're going to tag the link into it. We're going to start on page 1, pretty much, and what it is. And it's intriguing. I read this thing several times. Go ahead and read it yourself. We're going to brush over it, but it's really, really intriguing. It's from Curtis K. Markham, the commander of the Organized Crime Bureau, who's the memo was sent to. Now, if you remember the way a lot of these things work, Epstein during the Obama term was scot-free, didn't get prosecuted, nothing was brought up. He was kind of protected there with the Clintons involved. We can only assume that because as soon as Trump got into office several years later, all these people who were pushing these things, when I say all these people, I mean these heroes, the good cops, the investigators, who didn't want to let stuff go. They saw that children were being used as currency, and they didn't want to stop pushing. And they kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And a lot of these guys were told, shut the hell up, know your place, don't operate above your pay grade, be quiet. So when you see a memo that comes up like this in 1991, June 6th, that was the year I graduated high school, it really makes me say I'm really proud of some of the people who were doing the work out there, who kept this case alive and kept these ties alive. And that the fact that this memo was archived, that we can open it today and draw more lines and connect more dots. And then we can also know about some new people involved. Now, I just want to read. It says, sir, an analytical report was opened in 1985 as a result of the mob-style murder of Arthur Shapiro, a local attorney in the law firm then of Schwartz, Shapiro, Kelm, and Warren. I'm just going to read the next paragraph real quick. Because of the strong similarities between this homicide and a Mafia hit, a whack job. Boom, he's whacked. He's hit. The analysis concluded an in-depth study of a major LCN, which is a crime network, groups having contact in or near the central Ohio area where Les Wexner does business, where Les Wexner lives. These groups seem to include crime families in Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and in some degree, the Genovese family in New York. Now, let me just speak about that, elaborate that real quick right now. We'll get back to this document. The way these crime families organized and the way they operated is they would have like proxies in all these other towns, in Pittsburgh, in Ohio, in Cleveland, in Chicago. Even when Scarface Al Capone went to Chicago, he went down orders of New York. Now, the Genovese family is kind of interesting because, you know, being an Italian-American growing up on the East Coast, we always knew somebody. You know, we had people involved, we had family involved, you know, they kind of had little connections. And my connection was always, my grandfather was Joe Pips. And he was involved in bookmaking, you know what I'm saying? And he actually went to jail for usury, which was shylocking. But the guys he dealt with were guys from the Genovese family and the Colombo family. And they were big organized crime families. And they would have these proxies to all these other central areas. So I had a little kind of growing up with knowing people that were kind of connected to these families of sorts. Not anything deep, not anything on the surface. Like, once again, I was involved in the gambling aspect of it. I know Mikey Yu, he's probably watching on the Facebook. He could tell you the dummy cards back in the days. They were these parlay cards, and they would do all these type of operations before there was the intranet and where you can go gamble. And that's why they lost a lot of their power, because they lost a lot of these businesses, and they were kind of just phased out. But if you look down below, I'm going to get back onto this thing, and we're going to stay on page number 2 over here. It just says the overtime analysis of the Shapiro homicide became greatly expanded and more complex with the development of unusual interactive relationships between the following businesses and organizations. Right there, Johnny. That's perfect right there. And I just want to gloss over here. It says the Major Chord Jazz Club and its parent investment groups, which is now defunct. And I just want to kind of, you're going to see connections with this jazz club because there's bribery involved. Because the Ohio City Council was involved. We're going to talk about this Shapiro hit. Arthur J. Shapiro, who was whacked. It was a whack-style hit, and there's some crazy stuff that it leads up to why he was hit and all the people involved. So now you have this jazz club, which has these presidents of the city council that are connected to these jazz clubs. The Limited, number 2, B, and its investments interest. We know who the Limited is. L Brands, Les Wexner, involved back in the days, in the late 80s, okay? The Walsh Trucking Company and the alleged relationship between owner Frankie Walsh and the Genovese crime family. Once again, using these crime families to do a lot of their dirty work back in the days. I don't know if now they probably use the CIA, who knows, but Frank Walsh had this big trucking company, and he also received the contracts to the Limited in that area. Think about it. The law firm known as Schwartz, Kelm, Warren, Rubenstein, and Shapiro, and almost a day after he was whacked or murdered, they removed his name out of the law firm. The Omni Oil Company. Here we go again. You got all these little small proxies, all these other companies. It's all you wash my back, I wash yours. We get the city council involved. We were able to absorb these companies. Les Wexner owned 70% of this oil company at one point. Eddie DeBartolo Corporation. Now, here's where it gets fun. Of Youngstown, Ohio, the alleged relationship between Eddie DeBartolo and the Genovese crime family. Eddie DeBartolo, and if you want to go click on a link, maybe we can find a picture of Eddie DeBartolo. I'm going to talk a little about Eddie DeBartolo. Eddie DeBartolo was the owner of the San Francisco Giants. He had connections. He was stripped of the team. He got caught up in this gambling boat, this Louisiana gambling boat situation. But once again, it was always been known Eddie DeBartolo, just like his father, and Eddie Jr. was really close to Eddie Sr., was handed over all the businesses. So he also had all these other corporations and other businesses within Ohio that had ties financially to Leslie Wexner. And this was news to me when I saw this today. It really blew my mind. This guy won 5 Super Bowls in 14 years as an owner. I think he owned the team for 21 years, but in 14 years, they won 5 titles. He's been enshrined into the Hall of Fame. You can see that picture at the top left there, Johnny. You got to put that one up there. Look at this here. This is the 5 Super Bowls. Look at this here. This is Eddie DeBartolo, okay? And there's always been presumed that he's had these connections and whatnot. But, you want to paint this picture of, like, what's really going on, these Mafia-style hits. And, yes, he's involved. And if you go to page 3, now let's go back to the report real quick, and we're going to go through it. You can just see on page 3, it starts off, the law firm is known as Schwartz, Kelm, Warren, and Rubenstein, represented the Limited. They also had ties. Arthur Shapiro managed this account for the law firm, okay? So he was managing the account of the law firm. So what do you think that Arthur Shapiro knew? He knew some stuff. And it just goes down. It talks about all these subsidiary companies, the trucking companies, Leslie Wexner, other data supporting the linkage. I want to go down to number 2C on the bottom over there. Now, this is the funny thing. The whole thing when it comes to these crime families and these just corrupt families, they break bread together. They live together. They operate in the same building. On the 37th floor of the Huntington Center is also the address for John Wessler's company of the New York Albany Company. Now, listen. All these other businesses, these subsidiaries, operated in the Huntington Center. I think it's on the last page of the document of the Huntington Center. Not the second one. Let's take a look. We'll go all the way to the back, the last page. There's a document. It's the other one. The one next to it. See right here? This is they all have businesses in this building. Sorry for jumping over there, Johnny. I didn't mean to catch you off guard. But I wanted to show a graph because I like graphs and colors and whatnot. They all operated in the same building. So in all these businesses, it's very easy to have one guy go to all the floors and take care of all the businesses. But let's get back into this because there's a little bit more stuff. We're going to go to page 4. Robert Murawski. Okay. Robert Murawski, and this is D number 1. Robert Murawski was Arthur Shapiro was reportedly in direct contract with Vice Chairman Robert Murawski. He was the number 2 at the Limited. Met with Shapiro on a regular basis, talked to Shapiro on a regular basis. He knew Arthur Shapiro, okay? And it says it right below it. It has been noted that Les Wexner and Eddie DeBartolo have had a long history of business partnerships. Financial ties all over the place. We did not know that. And then eventually Murawski left, and he appeared in another company that eventually Les Wexner bought. So they were playing the media. They were playing everybody at this time. And once again, the company that Murawski went to, DeBartolo, number 5, he had a loan financial banking to Capano's Investments and Allied and Federated. So they were doing business all over the place. It was business as usual, baby. Based on conclusion, and we're going number 2 and A right here. It says, Arthur Shapiro, local attorney in the firm, Schwartz, Shapiro, Kelm, and Warren, was murdered on March 6, 1985 in a homicide having strong marks of a mafia hit. The homicide remains unsolved to this date. While all alternatives remain open for the investigation, the homicide is considered to be and is being treated as a hit. Very important to understand. This guy didn't just die accidentally. He wasn't caught in the crossfire. He knew something. Okay? He knew something, and he was whacked. Now, if you look on the second page, it's where it gets really, really juicy here. I'm going to skip to the second page right there where it says it was learned that Shapiro. Okay. It was learned that Shapiro was the subject of an investigation by the Internal Revenue Service because he had failed to file income tax returns for some 7 years prior to his death, and he had invested in some questionable shelters. The homicide occurred 1 day prior to Shapiro's scheduled appearance before a grand jury in the IRS investigation. There was some conjecture that Shapiro was in position to provide information to the grand jury that would have been damaging to some other party. The identity of that party and the nature of that information, however, could not be determined with any certainty. And it goes on to talk about the hit and whatnot. So here we are now, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to go testify to the grand jury. Once again, you got lone wolves going out there like, hey, listen, I don't care about these powerful people. I'm going to bring them down. They had a grand jury. They got this guy. You got information. You got numbers. You got proof. You got evidence that we can use to bring some of these people down. And he died for that information. He died for that information. And Les Wexner, I'm not saying he's guilty, but him and his operation, boom. And if you go on, and I don't want to really harp on this stuff, but you're going to see like on the next page how they had all these connections to the city council and all these businesses. So they connect the dots to how, they have all these, the jazz club, where the jazz club was invested money from a subsidiary of Les Wexner's business. And they were part of the Ohio City Council, the city council in that area. So you see all these connections, and they continue to connect the dots. And it's just really, really crazy. And I just want to show the last graph. And this story is intriguing. I encourage you to go over there because it's just going to show you every single other connection. You can see right there in the middle, that's Les Wexner, the Limited. To the left of Les Wexner is John Kessler. And it goes right up. And you can see that he's helping out the city. He's getting help from the city council. The city council in return gets money funded to them for this jazz club in which they get to run because that's what they do. They go after you for your hobby, your heart. What do you love? You want to own a jazz club? It was a dream. We can make that happen. You play ball with me, we'll play ball with you, baby. And that's how Columbus, Ohio has all these connections. You can see to the right there's the firm, the top right. All those people in the firm who did a business with all these people, okay? Shapiro did the books for the Limited. He did the books for the Limited. He knew he had information. 1 day before he's supposed to go to grand jury, he's whacked. And then if you look below the Limited, you'll see the other ties. Frankie Walsh, connections to the Genovese family. He's the trucking company. Guess what? He gets all the contracts for the limited in that area. And also connections to Eddie DeBartolo as well, helping out. Part of the Genovese family. Easy to have him whacked. Easy to get rid of him. The Epstein case, please go look at this at your own time. The Epstein case just gets crazier and crazier and crazier because more stuff comes out. And you have to look down the rabbit hole and you start seeing situations and stories like this. And this is just so intriguing and interesting. And it just shows a pattern. None of these people have paid a price for what had happened, what goes on. Not only their dirty dealings financially within businesses and using the city council to obtain everything you need in a shady way, but whacking people who could possibly talk against you. So that's the little story of the Epstein I have over there for you today. Let's get on over and say hi. Do we have any super chats? We do not have any. Oh, we do have a super chat. Use the super chat. It's easy. See? Mikey, we love you. Thank you so much. And if you can't use the super chat, you want to help on out, go on over to our Patreon. Help us out over there. Let's just give some shout outs and then we're going to get out of here. Once again, I want to say hi to my mom. Thank you so much. And thank you for the monetization for YouTube. We have 210 people watching on our YouTube. We have 110 on the MCSC network. And on Facebook, we got a little chatter. We got 8 people. Rocky Bellinger's in the house. Steve Woolbrandt. I know a lot of you, you political heads, you want the juicy stuff. We want to get into some more stuff. We actually did a video about 6 months ago on Joe Biden and his connections to the Ukraine. Criminal connections. All you have to do is follow the money and you find everything. But we did a video about 6 months ago, and now people are talking right now that Trump should have been able to talk to the Ukraine government about corruption going on with Joe Biden, and something that Joe Biden bragged about. You know what I'm saying? Literally, we had the video of him bragging that you're not getting the aid. He threatened Ukraine to not give them aid unless they removed their version of the attorney general who was looking into this company, this energy company called Burisma, was investigating them. Well, he removed it. They had that to get the aid. They had that attorney general moved. They put somebody else in play. They then dropped the case on Burisma, and Hunter Biden got $166,000 a month as a consultant from that company because they had the right people in play. Corruption at the core. Biden bragged about it. He's trying to play it off like that guy was corrupt. But they have all the money traces to Hunter. And now they're trying to use this and say, let's impeach him. Isn't this crazy that this is as Donald Trump sending troops to Saudi Arabia? It's kind of crazy. Johnny, we got anything else before we get out of here? Oh, listen, Johnny's got more details of the French raid. Get your microphone on.
Okay, check. Yeah, I was just kind of curious about the details of the raid. Can you tell us, what else they did? I mean, is there anything else that we should know?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I mean, I read the whole thing. Let me bring it back up. I closed it. Is there anything you saw that caught your eye? I mean, there's a massage table. Not a lot.
Agents from the Central Office for the Suppression of Violence Against Persons carried out the raid on the $8.6 million Epstein apartment. There was also a simultaneous raid at Karen Models, an agency run by Jean-Luc Brunel.
We talked about that. Brunel was one of his recruiters, and he went missing. We did a report on this. He went missing. So they've been looking after him. They did a raid on his place too as well. The information is there as far as it's a 7.18. But like I said, there's nothing really juicy yet. They said they found the massage table in the massage room. They talked about the black book, which we know everything about. You can see that picture with Jean-Luc Brunel, Ghislaine. We put that up there. Virginia Roberts, you know what I'm saying? I'd like to see her information if she'd been to that house. But right now we have nothing really lucrative other than the fact they went in there. So I'm waiting for more information. It's something to pay attention to. They might be breaking some news on what they found and what they came across inside the mansion. But that's it right now. It's pretty cookie cutter and on the surface. And I'm personally pissed off, Johnny, that it's taken this long to get in there. I don't even know what's gone on as far as they haven't even broke the information on what's going on in the Zorro Ranch, if they've gotten any juicy details on that yet. because there's some tunnels over there going to certain places as well. And that's where all the transhumanism took place. And then we also see the ties to MIT and whatnot. So other than that, that's it. We're going to get you out of here. Is there any more super chats? Anything we missed before I get out? I don't want to leave anybody in the dry.
Nope.
Thank you, Karen M. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, everybody. For Pasta Jardula and Jonny Tsunami, I am the Convo. This is the Convo Couch, and Convo out. Bye, Mom.
Peace.